Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 76.
We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with Indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldeman Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land.
It's a new week here on Let's Be Well Together podcast. This is Elise Seifert, and I'm joined today by John Webster. Hey, John.
It's nice to see you again, Elise.
Nice to be here.
I was asking for some topics to chat about, and you sent me something really interesting. It was Be the Pond, which is a YouTube video.
It's Zen Den Cosmic Kids Yoga.
And it's Be the Pond. I watched it, and it was really interesting. And I'm quite curious how it works, because you said you actually play it with your kindergarten kids.
I do, yes. So I take a lot of time to focus on self-regulation skills with my kindergarten students. And I came across this group of videos from Zen Den. And this one in particular, I really liked. It's a mindfulness strategy. It's called Be the Pond. You want to imagine that inside of your mind, there's a big, beautiful pond. And inside of that pond are all of your feelings. And these are represented by fish.
Yeah, so if I can just interject, it says you be the pond. So
That's right.
Not just your mind, but I guess you close your eyes, you imagine you're a pond. And then it would introduce different fish. And I thought it was kind of cool. It'd be like one would come in, it was happy, and one would come in, they'd be angry, and one was playful, and one was something else.
My student's favorite is the selfish fish.
Yeah, selfish fish. So each of these fish come entering into the pond, and then they say, imagine that each of these fish is a feeling.
That's right. And instead of being one of the fish, you want to just be the pond and observe the fish.
So you're always the pond, you're observing each of these different feelings.
That's right. And then the video gives you an opportunity to practice that. So there's a moment of silence where you can have maybe a moment of meditation and practice that with the video. It's an excellent resource for students, I find, in the classroom. It's a great way to just calm the students and a great way to identify feelings. So I really enjoy using it in my classroom.
Now, I can't help but be curious. What do the kids say or think? Like, what is the feedback you get from them?
Well, first of all, they have a lot of questions about the feelings themselves. So there are certain ones that they are curious about and would like to be described. So for example, playful, selfish. So it's a great opportunity for us to describe feelings and how you might feel during certain activities. Sometimes, though, they do realize that they're being a certain fish. So I draw it to their attention maybe when they're feeling angry or sad. Like, I notice you're being the angry fish right now, or I notice you're being the sad fish right now. Let's try to be the pond. And that helps them to monitor how they're feeling or to manage their feelings.
I never thought about it in that context, but what's kind of neat is you are not any of these things.
That's right.
So you can be feeling or acting in a certain way. And I guess it's a way of helping the child not think they are that.
Exactly.
But they can feel that. That can be how they're expressing themselves, because it's kind of overwhelming at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
How do they react then when you say you're being, so for example, the angry fish? Do they?
So sometimes they can recognize it. I think often at first they're a little reluctant or not really understanding of it. But after some practicing, they do a good job of understanding, okay, I need to be the pond and I need to just notice my feelings. So it's a lot of guided work right now in my classroom in kindergarten, but I hope that it's skills that they can take later and help to manage their feelings.
I would have thought that maybe it was too advanced for them. So what do you observe on that?
I think that it's a really good starting point for them. I don't think that it's too advanced. I think it's kind of setting a seed for them. And it's really incredible how much they can understand.
Yeah, that's true too. I think we often underestimate kids.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible.
And what about you? Do you get anything out of it?
Yeah, actually, I find I use it a lot when I'm being my anxious fish. So for example, when I'm trying to go to sleep, I'm the kind of person who just has a brain that runs. So it could be anything from thinking about something from the past. And why did I say that? Or how did that go wrong? And kind of thinking about past situations. Or I could be worried about something in the future, like a particular lesson or maybe a student that's struggling, or maybe a personal struggle. So I find when I'm in that moment, I'll recognize it in myself and say, I'm being the anxious fish right now. Like I just need to be the pond. And I just take some time to focus on my breathing and to let that kind of sink away. And I get this feeling almost where I'm zooming out from that feeling. I think with that practice of being the pond, I notice myself zoom out and then become the pond rather than become the anxious fish.
I think that's the difference that I think now that I've seen that. And I want to put in context too, because it is, I think, a mindfulness exercise.
It is, yeah.
Which is pretty cool to have kids already starting on that road. But that's the thing I hadn't thought of in terms of perspective, that you can step back and see and just try and kind of have that as a kernel that's a problem, as opposed to absorbing your whole brain.
Exactly.
It's a really neat way of looking at it.
It is a beautiful visual. And even though it's a video for children, I find it really helpful. And if you want to check them out, there's even more really helpful videos through Zen Den.
And now, have you talked to anyone else about this, like any other teachers, or have you seen it experimented in any other classes?
I have showed it to other teachers, and they have said that they'd like to try that with their students, especially the idea of recognizing feelings as the fish. So I know another grade 1 class close to me, they did a whole activity based on it. They created their own fish, and they had a little bulletin board of all of the feelings that they could have. And I know she said it worked really well. The teacher said it worked really well when she would introduce to a student, oh, you're being your angry fish right now. So I think that it's helpful.
Well, we learn a lot from kids. And I was saying to you before we started, one of the things you sometimes hear about running is if you want to know how to run properly, just watch kids run.
Amazing. Because
as you get older, I don't know, maybe you're training yourself in a bad way. You unlearn things. But I like watching how the kids' legs go really far back and they kick high.
Oh, yeah.
As you get older like me, it's more like shuffling.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to try and use some of the mind techniques too. And is there any kind of funny experience that happened when you did that?
I do a lot of meditation with my students. So sometimes it's funny for them to just say things out loud, like what they're thinking. I know we do another video where it's all about what thoughts are. So she asks questions and the students are just supposed to answer them in their head, but they just blurt out the answers. And that's always really funny because they have some funny things. Like one of the questions is, what makes you happy? And I've had kids say things like my Nana or my name Seifert. Like they've said that before too. Right. That's really cute. But I think most of what we get out of it is really good. I think they're really positive and they're really good at reflecting on when they do well with those activities. So I think it's really promising. I'm
sitting here thinking, well, it's kind of juvenile in a way, but I can just imagine myself, like you say, falling asleep.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be telling myself, be the pond.
Be the pond.
And then watch this kind of anxious or angry or whatever feeling turn into a fish.
Yeah.
I hope it works. Guests are giving their time. Expanding our minds. Today's interview touches on many categories of wellness. I'm speaking with my colleague and friend, Jacqueline Armstrong Gates, about the rewards of mentoring. Welcome, Jay.
Hi, John. So happy to be here.
Jacqueline Armstrong Gates is a partner at Gowling WLG in Waterloo region. Her office is right beside mine. She's an experienced commercial litigator and the national lead in product liability. She's worked with public and private corporations in Canada and the US. Jay is repeatedly recognized by Lexpert, Best Lawyers, and others as a recommended lawyer. She received University of Waterloo's Alumni Achievement Award and Waterloo Region Law Association's Coulter Osborne Award. She does much volunteer and community work. In her spare time, Jay's a bodybuilder. And on a personal connection, Jay was head of our advocacy department when I was looking to move to KW after working in Toronto at another firm for years. It was a move that changed my life for the better. I work with great people. I got back to my hometown, close to family, with less commuting and more time to exercise and work on wellness. And that makes me very grateful to Jay. So thanks, Jay. And thanks for letting me ramble on for a few minutes. I'm going to hog the mic for a bit longer. This interview came from an office door saying hi just yesterday. It's the time of year when new lawyers are being called to the bar in Ontario. In other words, they're becoming lawyers officially. And Jay's been really busy lately. It's been a bit of a grind. And she told me that she felt a lift because someone she mentored was just called to the bar. And then she said she realized that dozens of women she's helped over the years became lawyers. I couldn't resist asking her to chat about that. How mentoring not only helps other people, but it's personally rewarding. So Jay, can we start with some logistics? What position were these women in when you connected? Were they students? Were they looking to become students? Who were they?
Thanks, John. So there's actually 3 categories, but the primary category, and the woman that I referenced just became a lawyer, was someone I met through the University of Waterloo. And so they were all students in their undergrad between years 1 to year 4. I've also mentored women that are professionals within our local community, and as you know, our bench and bar is rather small in the Waterloo region. And of course, we have our mentoring program within the office.
Okay, and what are the ways, let's start, for example, with the University of Waterloo. How did you connect with some of these people?
The University of Waterloo has some really great programs. So they had something like a speed dating. It takes place at Fed Hall. I've been doing it for about 10 years. They invite a bunch of professionals, and the students have an opportunity to come to each of your tables. They spend about 10 minutes at each table. A bell goes off, and then they move on to another table. So I would show up, and I would have business cards, and I'd speak to these people. And of course, we love speaking about ourselves. But also, you can't achieve a lot in 10 minutes. So I would have a notebook and a business card, and I'd say to everybody, here's my business card. If you want to chat with me more later, feel free to give me a call, and we'll do so. And that's how I met with a lot of people from the University of Waterloo.
I can't help but wonder how many students at University of Waterloo right now know what a business card is. We'd be doing something different now, right? Yes. And a quick shout out to Isabel Sinclair and Sierra Fletcher, who are U of W Women in Pre-Law. And I know you've connected with them as well.
I have. And so in addition to the speed dating we had, I've also spoken at a number of legal options or legal studies, I think is what it's called now. I've spoken at different faculties. I've been invited to different speeches and generally just met people because the alumni at Waterloo is a very strong, vibrant community. And we've tried to connect with the students. So that's effectively where I've met everyone at the University of Waterloo.
And did you find that the people who connected with you, did they come to your table because they were already interested in law? So for most of the part, were people already looking and saying, hey, I want to get into law. Can you help me?
I think so. The reason I say that is that they put a profile of each professional that was going to be there that particular night. They knew what table they wanted to go to, and they would approach me and say, I read your profile. Can we chat? Right. They had predetermined questions they asked as well. And so I think even if they didn't want to get into law, they wanted to know what it was like to be a professional, what it was like to be a woman in the profession, and possible options with a law degree.
What are some of the things that you would then do if somebody called you up, they had your business card, they gave you a shout? What would you do?
Well, actually, we'd have a lot of fun. I've had breakfast, I've had lunches, I've had dinners, I've had just general conversations over the phone. I've said to them, you choose a place to eat, and I've learned different restaurants because I didn't know about all of them in the Waterloo region. Some of them went further where we're like, what I do with my LSAT, which is the exam you do before you go to law school. They asked me about, questions. They asked me, what volunteer positions should I have? They asked me about writing exams. They asked me about reference letters. They asked me about resumes. So we did the gamut's pretty large between in-person meetings and having meals, because I love to eat, but also just kind of more practical, strategic conversations about what to do next.
I can imagine that that's the kind of information that would be so useful to somebody who's heading off into a legal career. It's the kind of stuff there's a lot of people, myself included, who ended up at law school, went through law school, and still didn't know a lot about the practical stuff. It's a message I send to a lot of young people now. Like, if you're getting into law school, if you're in law school, talk to lawyers.
That's exactly what I say to people is, the best thing you can do is to talk to someone who's in the sphere that you're thinking of. Everyone's happy to give their time. Get a little taste about what it's like. We've also had students come shadow a little bit. I mean, they have to sign something called an NDA. That means a non-disclosure agreement. And not all opposing counsel and not all clients are willing to have the students, but I have had some students come into the office for a shadowing program to kind of get an experience of what my day is like. What they learn is it's not as exciting what you see on TV.
No, it's not. It's nothing like, and not only that, the whole practice in terms of, I remember watching an old show, I'm old, Ally McBeal, and every kind of episode was the same. They'd be partying on a Friday night, woohoo, and then they'd get a case, they'd work on it for a week, they would win it by the next weekend, and they'd be back to their party. And then meanwhile, we have how many cases, and they last for how long?
Well,
anyway.
The longest case I've had lasted 10 years, to be honest. So,
that's a long one.
Not a lot of partying, John.
And we don't really have time to go through everything, but let me shift gears then to the work mentoring. And I just found out that you actually helped set up Gowling's mentoring program. Tell me a little bit about how that started.
So 15 years ago, I was lucky enough to go to a leadership conference in Ottawa We were asked to bring something that was important to us to the conference. We had professionals there to kind of help us mold and figure out how to move forward, I guess. I brought it back to the local office and I said, I'd like to do mentoring. And it started off really basic, John. I mean, everyone got a $5 Tim's card to have a coffee with someone. So there was no official mentoring program in place at the time, but we were trying to encourage mentoring. And that's how it kickstarted. I was only involved for the first couple of years and then it grew from there. And as you know, because we've been working together for so long at the firm, we have an official and unofficial mentoring program. But the official mentoring program is you match people and they meet and they talk about benchmarks and it's someone you can go to that you feel comfortable talking about your life as well as your personal aspect of things. So I think it's a great program. I'm really proud of it.
I'm imagining somebody listening who works in a professional setting, they work in an office and they're thinking, hey, I should start something. And I'm sure there's lots of resources, but can you think of, looking back to when we started, you said $5 coffee card, maybe there's lunches. What are some of the things that people could just do even before they start an official program to just start making those connections with the younger people or the people who are newer?
That's exactly it. And you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that we were having you popped into my office and said hi. That's what I would encourage. Just pop into the office and say hi. I know there's still some remote working or some hybrid of remote working. So if you're not able to physically pop into the office, pick up a phone, do a Zoom call, chat with them and just check out, how's your day going? What do you need from me? It's making the personal connections. And the mentoring can be the official mentoring or it can be unofficial mentoring. And I think it's really important, since we're speaking about mentoring, you can have different type of mentors. You can have people that are mentoring you from a professional perspective who are more senior. You can learn a lot from junior people who in some ways they're mentoring you, even though you might have been in the career longer. So there's different aspects of mentoring. It's everywhere, really.
So let me take you back to the start. We were talking about how you felt so great because a lot of women have become lawyers who you've helped over the years. If we just kind of focus on that group for a minute, have any of them told you the kind of things that you helped them that helped them become lawyers? Like what were the actual things that you did or said?
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question, John. So let me give this prime example of the women that had reached out to me over the weekend, which is what's kickstarted our conversation. I met her at U of W. Then I reached out with her when she was looking to apply to law school. I helped her with reference letters. I remember her first set of exams in December. She called me and said, I'm really anxious about my exams. What do I do? Then I moved forward a little bit more and she was looking for jobs. And then, as I said, I got this great email as well as photos of she was in her gown with her mom and her husband. And she was so excited she was actually a lawyer. And the best part that she said is, thank you for doing so much for me because now I'm going to pay it forward. Right. And that kind of gave me goosebumps. And so what they've told me I do is I give them a bit of boost of confidence. I'm a phone call away. I tell them they're going to get through things. I tell them that everyone's done exams. I tell them if something is bad that day, the sun will shine tomorrow. I mean, nothing's as doomy or gloomy as you might think. So I'm just there as a kind of a sounding board, I guess, is the best way to put it.
That's a good one. Like a lot of times, and it's not just with professions, it's a lot of the message we often send on the show is sometimes you just need somebody to be there. You don't even need them to tell you what to do. You just need that sounding board, that person to listen to you. And, a lot of times when people call with those kind of situations, you can see they're talking through it themselves as long as you're kind of actively listening to them.
Well, that's exactly it. They need someone to talk to and then they go, yeah, I feel better after I've had this conversation with you. It's kind of what I thought. I thought I was on the right track, but it's nice to have a little bit of support behind me or someone to suggest that I'm on the right track. The other thing I was able to do, because I've met so many people and so many mentors, I've made some connections as well. So for example, someone was looking to go to McGill. I already knew someone at the University of McGill for law school, so I connected them. Someone was looking to go to Queen's, so I connected them. Someone was looking at Calgary, so I connected them. So they then had a friendly face, because who doesn't want to see a friendly face when you go somewhere, that helped them out going forward. So even though they didn't become best of friends, they had a relationship that they can rely upon, which makes me also feel good.
That is amazing. And we focus a lot of our discussion about how it's rewarding to the people you help. So now let me shift gears to you. So it must be a good feeling. You obviously got a lift today. So that was, and I know you just said you get goosebumps. So that's another good thing. So what are some of the ways in which you feel rewarded through all this?
Well, I love it, John, because I personally believe we should be giving back. But if I go back to when I started, I was very fortunate to have mentors in my life. They provided me advice, guidance, exposure, experiences. So I'm feeling good about providing the same kind of advice, exposure, experiences to these mentors. And as I said, creating relationships and knowing that they're being successful In addition, we both work in the same community, and it's a very small, the bar in Ontario is very small. And so I never know, I might run into someone in the future as opposing counsel or side counsel or know someone who knows somebody. So it just gives me a bit of a boost knowing that we're doing a good thing for the profession generally and helping each other out.
Definitely, I think that giving back, service, it's so rewarding on so many different levels. So I really feel where you're coming from on that. And I love that concept of paying it forward. One of the things I've heard, so just to sidetrack for a second, I was a member of a service club for a long time, and service clubs, no matter what name they are, Rotary or Kinsmen or Lions, they're getting older, right? Young people aren't really joining a lot of these clubs. There's a big effort, big push to try and get more young people interested. And so I went through a lot of hearing about that, learning about that, and I came to conclude that young people do want to give back. It's just that they like doing things in a different way. So it'll be really interesting to see how the people who you've helped pay forward as they go forward. I'm going to suspect it's in a slightly different logistical way, but it's great that they're going to have that urge to do the same thing.
I think so, John. I agree with you about service clubs. And yeah, a younger generation, they definitely do look at things differently. I think they're more supportive. Just personally, they're out there for, having a drink, having a coffee, supporting a person in the office. And I believe they're going to remember that they had a boost at certain times. And so they're going to offer that boost to someone else.
There's different ways of approaching service and help. And I think that we're going to see some really neat things from the younger generations over the next little while.
I agree, particularly because the people that I have been able to connect with, they're super engaged. I say to them, they should be so proud of themselves for having reached out to us. They're further ahead than a lot of people because they're already thinking about what they can do moving forward. And so I'm very confident that we're in good hands moving forward.
Okay, well, we are, believe it or not, toward the end of the interview.
Oh my gosh, John, that was so much fun, and I can't believe how quickly it went.
It flies by.
Like we said, who doesn't like talking about themselves, right?
I know, Jay, that you listen to the show, so you know that at the end of the interview, I ask all guests the same question. And it's in a context where we all have areas of wellness that are important to us, but not enough time to focus on all of them at any given time. So it's essentially a mini wellness check-in. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of one thing you can do to foster wellness in that area?
So, John, first let me start with a shout out back to you because, yes, I do listen to your podcast. I love your podcast, and I find it very engaging and interesting. And as far as my mini wellness check-in, I had to think about this, and I would say I need to do more yoga and meditation. I have found a really great yoga teacher. I've started going there. But I need to calm down a little bit because, as you can appreciate, in our profession, we're constantly going. And so that is the area that I need to focus on more.
Now, yoga and meditation are two different things. Do you know, is the person who's helping you teaching you both of those?
Yeah, so what she does is it's a bit of a combination. At the end of each yoga class, she makes us just sit and reflect and be kind of quiet and try to quiet our brains. That's the reason I mentioned the meditation aspect of things.
Okay, because a lot of our guests have talked about meditation, and you've probably heard me say many times I want to get into it. Recently, we interviewed Shireen Samuels, who's our DEI person at Gowling, and she mentioned the book, The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself by Michael Singer. And I've got it now on my list. I'm going to buy it. I think I've said this so many times that I'm going to get into meditation. I don't do it. It's one of those things where I have to get disciplined. Hopefully I will within the next 6 months.
Well, I have to say, so the reason I like the yoga part of things is I'm physical and I can understand it and I can do the yoga. The meditation part of things, my brain seems to move very quickly. And I have to say, kudos to my kids, because it was actually my son and my daughter that had taken meditation lessons and were trying to teach me that. So that's why I thought if I started with yoga and just the last 5 minutes, it's not so overwhelming. And maybe I'll then be able to read the book that's been recommended and get more into the meditation. But I don't think I'm at that stage yet.
No, and it's the other thing too is it sounds odd, but I don't think I can be hypnotized. I don't know if it's because I'm skeptical or because my mind goes too fast, and so probably won't work. And by the same token, I'm not sure I can meditate because my mind spins so much, but everyone convinces me that there's ways to get into it. And I love your thought of starting slow. Like, that's a great way to start. 5 minutes at the end of a yoga class. Maybe you can start to train your body.
Maybe I can't. Now, John, I think the reason that we can't meditate is because we're so brilliant, because we're lawyers, and our brains move so fast. But, who knows? We can always learn, right?
I'm pretty sure that's not brilliance, Jay.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of the Adventures of the Starving Artist. This week, I've been collaborating with my friend Matt. Matt, down in Massachusetts, is a music teacher, one of my buddies from school, and plays the vibraphone. We've been collaborating on a new tune, very jazzy, which is a little bit outside my usual, but it's nice to dust off the old cobwebs and get the jazz fingers going again. Matt is very experienced in jazz and plays it frequently, like daily, and is an incredibly gifted vibraphone player, so it's been an absolute joy collaborating with him. I don't have a snippet of tune to show you yet. I'm hopeful that next week I will, but I can tell you that I started with a simple chord progression, and I tried it like a gazillion different ways. I tried it upbeat, I tried it slowly, I tried swing, I tried straight time, 6/8, I tried a 12 shuffle, I tried, you name it, I tried it. And I just wasn't finding the sound I wanted, so I threw the progression at Matt with just a simple drum beat in the background. And he got back to me the next day and said, what if we tried this kind of a drum beat? And it features a whole lot of jargon, but basically a very specific type of swing in the drum groove. And the way that this particular groove feels is, I would use the word angular. It doesn't feel like a gentle rocking back and forth or a nice kind of cruising along swing. It's almost disjointed. It feels like it's almost broken in a way. And that lent itself to the chords I had sent over, which were quite lush and smooth. And the two together made this sort of juxtaposition. It's a really neat effect. Then, once we had polished that out and fleshed that out, Matt hit the vibraphone on top, and my goodness, it's coming together. Yeah, like I said, hopefully next week I'll have a snippet that he and I are both happy with that I can share with you. But for now, I'm just going to leave you on the edge of your seat wondering what it might sound like. The only other big news I have, and unfortunately the way that our scheduling is going to work, you'll be hearing this after the fact, but I'm looking forward to playing with Shy Harry again this weekend. We're going to be out in Wasaga Beach at the Wasaga Beach Brewing Company. We played their closing show for their previous location a while ago, and I don't know all the details, but it had to close down due to where it was on the beach, something or other. Fast forward to now, there's a new spot, new outdoor stage, everything is cool, and we get to go play. So really looking forward to playing with the guys again and seeing the great folks at Wasaga Beach Brewing Company. Pete, we're coming for you. Looking forward to it. For now, though, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great week. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We're glad you're here, and we hope you're making wellness a priority. Hope you're getting something out of the podcast. And especially for people who are new, you might not know that the podcast was inspired by my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, Barnes & Noble, pretty much anywhere where you can buy books online. And this is my pitch for you to buy a copy and have a read. I think it'll enhance the experience of the podcast, and it will also help us defray some costs because it's really expensive putting out a podcast. So grab a copy if you can, and in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the show.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
Hey Sheila, let's talk about that social media post that Lori posted, your sister Lori.
Okay.
It's on Instagram and it's at Women Who Lead Empires. And it's one of those replace habits posts. And there's a whole bunch of them that are floating around these days. You know, replace this with that. And I only want to talk about the ones that kind of relate to move that body.
Okay.
So I'll just read them and then you can start out whichever one you like. Replace Netflix marathons with sleep. Fast food with homemade food. TV with exercise. And overthinking with action.
Excellent.
Which one you want to chat about?
Well, for me, the fast food to the homemade food is a big one. We don't eat out a lot, hardly at all, actually. We eat at home. And I really like the fact that I know what's in it. I know what we're getting, what we can add to make it more this or that. It's cheaper. And it just seems to me even taste better.
It tastes really good.
Yeah.
But one of the really important things for me too is we know what we're putting inside ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so, like, it's great to actually know. And that actually makes me feel better on the few times we do go out. You know, maybe there's too much salt or there's too much of this or that. But it's really nice knowing what you're putting inside when you're eating.
It is. It's really nice. And although it takes time, like it definitely is on my mind when I'm prepping or going grocery shopping or looking in the fridge saying, what am I going to make for the week? I find it's really worth it.
I really think sometimes, like, when it boils down, we're trying to send a lot of messages out on this podcast, covering a lot of topics, different areas of wellness, whole bunch of stuff. But when it really comes down to it, if nothing else, like I keep saying, make physical fitness and exercise a regular part of your everyday life.
Definitely.
Eat moderate and eat real food.
Yes.
Replace that fast food with homemade food. And, you know, I do kind of see a whole generation coming up that don't really seem to want to cook or know how to cook or learn how to cook. And just to throw it out there, it's worth it, guys.
It's worth it.
You might want to try
so
it.
worth it. What about for you, John? Which one sticks out for you?
Well, let me go with the overthinking to action.
Yeah, that's a good one for you.
I'm always overthinking everything.
Always.
I'm overthinking right now, what I should say.
Yeah.
And this is another huge lesson that we're trying to say in the podcast. I've learned, for me, it's just unbelievable how much going for a run eases my mind. The weights, I've been doing more weights lately, which is fantastic. That makes me feel great. Like, it makes me feel good walking around. But the aerobic exercise, especially for me, the one that takes time, the long distance running, man, it really helps me slow down that spinning of my mind.
Definitely. I think for me, Netflix to sleep, those Netflix marathons to sleep. Like sometimes you get so addicted to what you're watching, you just want to watch the next one. They do those cliffhangers, so you really want to do the next one. And I know when to cut it off. I'm like, no, sleep is too important for me. I need to get my sleep. And I think that's really a good one.
I'm so old that I won't even say how old I am.
Right.
I'm getting old.
You're not that
Having
old.
said that, it's so pathetic that I learned lessons so late. And so this year, really, once you got a job the last couple of years where you start to work really early, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at least, as a result of which you started going to bed really early. And at a certain point in the last year, I started to go to bed early a lot of the times too and wake up early. And it's unbelievable how many times, so my old routine used to be watch this, watch that, stay up late. I only need 7 hours sleep. I can get away with 6 hours sleep. And lately, like quite a few times you said, John, I'm just exhausted. I got to go to bed. And it's been really early. And I think, oh, that's crazy, but okay. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed early too. Not quite as early. And I feel unbelievable. And so I finally, after all these years of living, realized that when I'm overtired, when I'm a bit off, it's so much better to go and get a really good night's sleep than it is to what I used to think is chill out in front of the TV, as if that would somehow relax me.
And I do just want to say the one last one was TV to exercise. And I agree, TV, cut out some TV so you can exercise. But you know what? You can stretch while you're watching TV. You can exercise a little while you're watching TV. It's not a bad thing. So maybe put those two together. Go to the gym with your favorite show is on. Watch it there. And you're on your elliptical or your treadmill or whatever. It's a nice way to get both done.
And to be a bit of a contrarian, I would say some TV's okay. Like for us, in our life, at a certain point of the day, it's like, hey, let's just de-stress. We'll go watch a show. There's a few shows that we like. And so I definitely wouldn't cut TV entirely out.
No.
That wouldn't work well for me.
I agree.
But it's kind of like the too much TV, right? I like that. Combine it with exercise. There's a thought. Popped up while running. It's easy to zone out when you're on a run or a bike ride, out for a walk. You're not really noticing what's going on around you. So I play this little game every once in a while. It's going to sound a bit morbid, but it's not. Did you ever see that movie where, maybe it's a Western, somebody gets shot, and then they fall back and they're lying on the ground and they're looking up and they know that they're dying. It's their last moments. And maybe they see a color of a leaf in a tree, or maybe a hawk goes by and they look at the hawk, or they notice the clouds. But you can tell they're just taking in everything that they're sensing at that moment. Anyway, so today I was running along and there's a section of the path that I run on that's beside a golf course. and my music was on, and I realized I was just bouncing along. All I noticed was the trail, the pavement, and the dividing line of the trail. Didn't really notice anything else. And then I played this little game I play, which is, what if this was your last minute? What would you notice? So I took a deep breath and I could smell the grass. Then a bird flew across and I followed it to the tree, and then I noticed it had something in its beak. Then I looked up at the sky and saw the clouds. And all of a sudden, I was in that moment and I was sensing all these things. Not surprisingly, everything else just flowed away for a moment. It was a good one. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin. Wow, I can't believe these forest fires and how long they've been burning and how much they've been burning. It's a little bit scary environmentally.
I think they're going to continue all summer too, from what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Because isn't this kind of the wet time of year? Like, why are they burning now?
I know, it's surprising. And it's so far up north and in Quebec that we really don't have any idea of what their weather is like there.
True.
But I guess they have no way of stopping them from burning. They're going to continue burning until they stop. They can control it, but they can't stop them.
These pictures, now we're kind of lucky. So we're in Waterloo region. And for some reason, I don't know why, we don't get much. It's only every once in a blue moon you smell it. You see a bit of haze, but nothing like the pictures I'm seeing about places like New York and stuff like that.
I know, that's what's concerning to me, because we're getting it a little bit. It actually smells like a fire. Like, it doesn't smell like a fire. It smells like a barbecue or a campfire, that kind of feeling.
Right.
But it is coming here, which is surprising because we're thousands of kilometers away from these fires. We're in no danger whatsoever, but we do have air quality concerns now.
I don't understand how those work either, because this week I actually didn't go for a run morning because it said it was a high dangerous level, something like a 10 or whatever the number is. So I have to look that up. But I don't understand. Like, it didn't look smoky. You couldn't really tell. So, but apparently it's very dangerous stuff.
Yeah, it's dangerous to breathe in for a continual amount of time, especially if you're exercising, because you're taking in your air faster. But yes, there has been some air quality control warnings. They've canceled some kids' activities outside. Even some of the kids didn't go out for recess some days because of the warnings. So it's just an environmental concern, because I'm a little worried about the world warming up. And if this is something that's going to become the norm, are we taking care of our world enough? Is there something we can do to prevent them?
Well, there's something we have to do. It's so disappointing to me when we see this. Obviously, it's the worst, I think, in Canadian history.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the States, there's the worst X in its history.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's major issues. I was looking at heat maps from Texas this past week.
Right.
They're crazy, and they're saying that in years to come, they're expecting it to go up like 120s,
Yes.
and that's Fahrenheit.
Yes.
How can all this stuff be happening and we still hear people saying that it's a myth or we don't have to do anything? We have to do something.
We have to do something. We have to take care of our world. And I wish that we could be given a little bit of guidance on what we can do personally, like not just businesses and the world, just like people individually. How can we help?
Well, okay. In fairness, I think you know some stuff. And I do think it's each of our own responsibility to look them up. So,
yeah,
like, I actually think talking to Tova Davidson at Sustainable Waterloo Region, we learned some stuff. And I know you do a great job. You bike to work every day.
Yeah,
instead
that's
of
true.
your car. There's a lot of things we do to conserve water. So I hear what you're saying. I think maybe you're just a little despondent about how bad it is. I think if you thought about it, you'd see that you do know some things and
Right.
we're learning others.
Definitely no environmental things that we can do to help sustain our environment. But I don't understand these fires. I don't understand why they're happening.
Okay,
how they're happening.
And we're not going to answer that in the next couple of minutes, but forget that for a second. Think about the fact that the world is slowly warming up.
Yes.
So the average temperatures are warmer. And, you know, you have this whole concern. They talk about 2 degrees, that they want to avoid that increase up to the 2 degrees. But just imagine if things are warming up and spots are warm where they weren't warm before, the ice caps melt faster and forests are drier. Forests that aren't usually dry are drier. And so
Right.
they start on fire faster, and there's effects on weather and possibly on the hurricane seasons. So it's all just physics.
Right.
It's physics operating on increased temperature and other factors such as the amount of carbon in the air. So, I don't know the signs of it right now. I'm going to sound foolish if I try and explain it.
Right. No, I understand. So it's just a little upsetting because it is here in Canada and we consider us environmentally healthy here. And this is a little too close to home, I think. And it's actually not that close to home. So I really feel bad for the people who live closer to the fires, the people who got evacuated from the fires and have to live somewhere else. And we're actually feeling a bit of it, but they have the brunt of it. And then, of course, I don't know if you heard that in the States, they had a baseball game, and I guess it was very smoky and cloudy, and they were complaining about us in New York.
And they have as much of a problem as us. But I do think it's an eye-opener for us Canadians, but it's an eye-opener for the whole world. I remember when I interviewed Tova, she pointed out that Canadians, I think, are the worst when it comes to vehicles.
I know, I was really surprised.
So you say that, we're environmentally friendly. Are we?
Let's try to be better.
If Canadians want to be environmentally friendly, Canadians have to be environmentally friendly. So let's all learn more about it and be more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, and maybe this is a big eye-opener for us.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with Elise and John.
Hello.
This week, I've been working and swimming every day, which is really nice. It's been very hot here. So, yeah. So that's nice, but it did rain, which is good for the garden. I've been doing my gardening and doing my workout. But the one thing I wanted to mention for me is I've been listening to Les Mis, which is 59 hours long.
Oh my goodness.
It's a long. So I have been listening to Les Mis when I'm working. I drive a truck, so I can listen to it in the truck for 10 hours a day. So that's good. But I've also been working out and listening to it. I've been mowing the lawn and listening to it. So it's a really fun way to do things and kill time. So that's what's new with me. What about you, Elise?
Well, I've been enjoying my first week of summer.
Very true.
So we've been doing a lot of those quintessential summer activities. I actually went out for a bike ride along the water up in Owen Sound where I live. And it's so amazing when you go biking or walking somewhere because you find different parts of the city that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Rather than just driving. I find when you're driving, you're kind of so focused on your end destination.
Well, and driving itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. I guess you do have to focus on that. But I went biking and I could take my time and I discovered a new beach.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. And Stephen and I went there and went for a great swim. And we also went to our local farmers market, the Katy Market.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And it feels like a great start to our summer. And looking forward to this week, I will be in Mexico.
Oh, she's leaving today. So exciting.
Yeah. So a week in an all-inclusive. I am so excited. How about you, John?
Mine's going to sound a lot like last week. Really busy work week, so just doing normal stuff. We're doing sign-off different today. We're doing it on a Saturday instead of a Sunday or Monday. Why it's still the same as last week is because I don't yet know if I'm going to be able to do a 10-kilometer run today or tomorrow to keep my streak going. So I'm hopeful. I feel pretty good. My hip's not bothering me too much. I just don't know what's going to happen when I hit the streets, if it's going to start to hurt. So that's it for me.
I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.